Time having arrived, I call this meeting of the Brockton School Committee to order for May 4th, 2021. Let's see. All right. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Let me read our COVID statement. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and state of emergency, on March 12, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 20. Pursuant to the order, public bodies are temporarily relieved from the Open Meeting Law's requirements that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be held and will be accessible to the public via Brockton Community Access, Brockton Public Schools website, www.bpsma.org, YouTube, and Comcast Channel 98. The public can access this meeting via this link, www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. Okay. I'll call a roll to establish a quorum. The mayor does send his regards. He is tied up in another meeting and will do his best to be able to join us at some point this evening. D'Agostino is present. Ms. Asak.
Present.
Mrs. Mendez.
Present.
Mr. Minicello.
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Present.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Present.
Mr. Sullivan.
Present.
Okay, we are a quorum. And my understanding is that we do not have any visitors for hearing of visitors this evening? That's correct. Okay, great. So we will move forward from there then. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. Just for folks watching the meeting, the consent agenda is just simply the bundling of routine school committee business that we're able to take as one vote. Any member of the committee is always free to take an item out of the consent agenda that they would like to discuss in further detail. At this time, I'll ask if there's any member of the committee that has an item they'd like to take out of the consent agenda for further discussion. All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we accept items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K as written.
L and M and N.
L, M, and N as well.
Okay.
Second.
You didn't know we were going to recite the alphabet in
No.
tonight's meeting, did you? Should we go along with now I know my AB? Anyway. All right. Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Sullivan to accept the consent agenda and a second by Mrs. Asak. I will call the roll. D'Agostino is a yes. Asak.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Judy Sullivan.
Yes.
And Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. The consent agenda is taken care of. And then under communication, okay. We do have one item of communication to the superintendent. I don't know if I take the, all right. One item under communication to the superintendent, a request from the Elections Commission for the use of schools as polling locations for the 2021 election cycle, both on Tuesday, September 14th of 21, and Tuesday, November 2nd of 2021. They need to have the buildings from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. The elections office would be staffing it. And they also need our custodial staff to help them prepare. The buildings specifically that they're requesting are the Kennedy School, Downey Elementary, South Middle, Hancock, West Middle, Gilmore, Davis, East Middle, Raymond, Brookfield, Ashfield, North, and Barrett Russell. Do we have any discussion on that item? Ms. Asak?
Just had a question. So I know we're voting on this, but in the past, especially now with COVID, we're getting back into the routine of getting back out there in person. We've talked in the past about finding other locations in our schools. You know, we go through the whole process of keeping everyone safe with the double doors, and election day is just, we're letting them all come in. So I know we've talked about it, if we can just maybe revisit that after, you know, maybe in the next few months, maybe for future elections, but I know it's been brought up in the past.
Right.
So especially now where a lot of our schools have the double entrances, that if we can find, you know, maybe work with the city to find other locations.
Other locations in the building or outside of the buildings? Because we have worked with them on other locations that are not schools, and they have not been able to secure enough. We are going to ask, and we can ask the Department of Education if they allow remote learning days. That could be a consideration. I know they'll allow remote learning days for snow days, but they may allow one for the primary around safety. So that's something we can consider when we get closer to next school year.
Okay.
But we have worked with the city. I know they've looked at, but it's been very hard for them to secure
Right.
locations that are not schools.
So maybe whether it's, so November, we're definitely not
November,
in session.
we're closed.
Yeah,
and,
so I thought September we were doing it, I thought September at one point we were closing.
no, we ended up, because it's so beginning of the school year, it's a very difficult time to close. We just get kids back to school, and the primary, well, last year, the primary, we didn't have to close because it was on, I forget, September. I think it was the 2nd of September. We weren't open
Early,
yet.
yeah.
And so this year it is during, when schools open. So again, we can discuss whether we can we might want to consider that, making that a remote learning day to actually for safety and security. What we did the prior year when we were open for the primary is we did, Lieutenant Fadawa worked with us, and the city hires a police officer to be, it has to stay at the polling locations to secure ballots. And we did hire extra police officers for every school that had, and they served just the school to make sure that, you know, did whatever the principal needed, help with traffic, and then actually stayed at the entrance. We did that as extra security. But we could, you could, as a committee, consider a remote learning day for the primary.
I think a remote learning day, if that is possible, and if the you know, maybe leave it up to the families too. Because when they're constantly, I know at Brookfield, primary is usually like in the gym, which is that's a little bit of a walk for, you know, some of the elderly that really can't walk that far, or a lot of the constituents that are going out there. It gets confusing. 1 minute they're in the gym, 1 minute they're in the cafeteria. You know, if we can keep them in the cafeteria, I think it would just make it easier on everyone. They know where they're going, they know where they need to vote. And if we do remote, that way we can keep the staff, the students, safe, and maybe work that way. So I think that would make more sense than try to move locations, because there's so many locations. I've worked in the elections, gosh, for over 20 years, helping out, and there's just a lot of polling locations. So to get them out of all the schools would be really, really difficult. But if we can maybe look into doing remote learning, if the other committee's on board. But again, we just got to keep everyone safe
Okay.
rather than having them roam around the schools.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, maybe you can, you know, I think at this point it makes sense. You know, we'll see if the rest of the committee wants to do, but for me, it makes sense to go ahead and approve this, but then you also research with DESI about whether we could have a remote day, which is something we can take up separately, you know. But no, good thoughts and good suggestion to check on that. So if you can just report back to the committee in the future. All right, anyone else on this item?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request from the Elections Commission as written. Do you need the schools listed?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. All right. Motion on the floor by Mr. Sullivan, properly seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. I'll call the roll. D'Agostino is a yes. Ms. Asak?
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Minicello?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
So moved. Okay. And the next item is the report of the superintendent of schools, and without further ado, I'll turn the floor over to Superintendent Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. D'Agostino. So last week, after the vacation, the Department of Education released a guidance for high schools to return to full-time, 5 days in person by March 17th. And school closes on June 16th is the last day of school. Dr. Murray and his team have been working. As you know, Brockton High School houses 4,046 students. And I'll have Dr. Murray go over the details with you, but going over the feasibility study, it's going to be very difficult for us to fit all the students coming in at 3 feet apart. Our classrooms for a high school this size are small. Our labs, our science labs are very tight. So I'll have Dr. Murray, so I'll give you a quick example. And I feel, again, and I know that we want our students back. We have been back 50% at Brockton High School, which I think has been a big feat for the largest high school in the East Coast. And I think they've done a great job of keeping students safe. Again, even with 1,000 students staying remote, you're talking about 3,000 students, which no other high school deals with. So Brockton High School has 4,046 students, and then we've had to do a feasibility study. We've had to do it at 6 feet. We had to do it at 3 feet. This was done all last summer. And as you know, there's no way we could have fit students at 6 feet. And coming back full-time at 3 feet, we basically cannot fit all the students. So the average class size at Brockton High School is 30 feet by 24 feet, which can accommodate a maximum of 18 students at 3 feet of social distancing. Having said that, a majority of the classrooms can only fit 12 desks because you need 3 feet in between the aisles for fire exits. So, and you also need 6 feet in front of the classroom to have the 6 feet of social distancing. With our students, our average class size at Brockton High is 29. Some of the elective courses are at 32. And I'll have Dr. Murray go over the remaining of this because his team has spent a lot of time doing this feasibility study, a feasibility study that was done, again, last summer because we had to do it. And I'll let him go over the rest of that. So thanks, Cliff, for being here. Dr. Murray, the principal of Brockton High, and he can go over the details of the feasibility study.
Good evening, everybody. I refuse to have my picture on the big screen. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to discuss the potential return of students to Brockton High. First, let me make it perfectly clear that all of us would prefer the students to return. Brockton High, the energy, what the school is all about is all of the students there, all 4,000 plus. And this is not a decision that we've taken lightly. We've looked at a variety of scenarios where we felt maybe we could squeeze the kids in at 3 feet, and it's simply not feasible. The superintendent alluded to the average classroom size. Just to make things easier from a math standpoint, if you have a 20 by 20 foot room, it's 400 square feet. Our typical room is about 384 square feet. Each student requires 36 square feet of space to meet that 3 foot social distancing requirement. Actually, it's a little more than that, given they're actually in a chair that's about a foot wide. So, and typically in most of our rooms, that means we have a maximum seating capacity with a teacher of around 11 to 12 students. Most of our classes Yeah, well, our classes easily average 29. We have classes with 34, 36 students, and we do have some classes, with 8 or 9. The problem that we run into is even if we were able to utilize every space, every period, the example I would give is the class of 30 students. We can comfortably, safely seat 11 or 12 in one classroom with a teacher. What are we to do with those other 18 students? And the problem then becomes finding them a location, which, we have some big spaces that we could try to utilize. But then even if we had the teacher remote in the building, we'd still have to have supervision of those students in that additional space. It's just not a situation that we can pull off. Looking at our numbers, even with our remote learners, staying full remote, and our current attendance rates, right now we have around 1,100 students a day attending. There are classrooms that are comfortable with 6 or 7 students, but we have classrooms already with 11 or 12. And so the question becomes one of space, certainly not of desire on our staff's part, but we simply don't have, out of those 256 learning spaces, rooms that can accommodate the numbers at 3 feet. Jess Hodges, part of the requirement with the state, Ms. Hodges and I have met actually with a person from the DESE, Lindsay, to discuss and ask questions about the waiver process. One of the things that they did ask us to do, and you should have that attached in your kind of information packet, is a survey. And we feel that we do have a significant number of families who are still very uncomfortable with the idea of having 3,000, 4,000 students in the same place at the same time. We've all been at Brockton High when the school is in full session. The hallways are crowded. There is no two ways around it. As a result of that survey, there's clear indications that we may have some students who are actually functioning in the hybrid environment and at least able to socialize with some of their peers 2 or 3 times a week, whose parents are going to ask that they remain full remote. So with that survey, with the attached documentation with regards to room size and anticipated class numbers, it's very evident that we really can't, given the structure as it exists today, accommodate the state's requirement of 3 feet and meet the safety requirement and really the instructional needs of all of our students. We've been working on this. The superintendent and I actually had a private phone conversation with Commissioner Driscoll as early as last July about the spaces in the high school. Fortunately for us, the commissioner was actually at Brockton High the spring prior to the pandemic and had an opportunity to tour the hallways, see some of the passing time, and then head over to the fine arts for some music and some drama activities. But he's well aware of the situation with regards to how crowded, how full the high school is. So we've been working on this, pecking away at this since last summer, and it is clearly not how we would like things to play out. One of the things that we did discuss with the state was when the seniors leave that last day on the 28th, if they wanted us to try and do something with the rest of the underclassmen. Again, I honestly don't think I can meet all of the 3-foot requirements. However, the weather should be really pleasant. Hopefully the beginning of June, and if we had to utilize some of the outside spaces, we've looked in getting Wi-Fi for the stadium. We have a rather humongous tent out by the fine arts where we're trying to find out if we can move one of those mobile hotspots there. So we are trying to explore different avenues in terms of where we could put students. But again, if we're really talking about an instructional and educational experience, the auditorium certainly not ideal for learning, nor would the stadium or being outside under a tent. So that is the position that I think the superintendent has come to agree with us on, and the proposition that we put forth to the state is that at 3 feet, we simply don't have the space and aren't capable of meeting that requirement, and then providing the appropriate supervision and instruction for all of our students.
Dr. Murray, thanks for joining us tonight. And I think we all probably heard from the same constituent who raised some concerns about this. So I wanted to ask, one of the points that was made in the email that she sent out was about utilizing spaces like cafeterias and gyms. I mean, is that something does that help, or is that not?
Well,
enough?
as I stated earlier, obviously those are spaces that we could use. The situation then becomes who is going to supervise the students. If, for example, we have 83 classes taking place at one period, and a third of those, or a quarter of those, we'll say, are classes that we're going to have to divide because there are more than 11 or 12 students. It's actually much higher than that, but just for argument's sake, we would need an additional 20 teachers or 20 MTAs or paras to supervise the other location for the remainder of that class. Now, the other point is that these students have been, I would venture to say, almost heroic in their approach to school and their effort, and then suddenly to return them to the building and they don't have the teacher in front of them that they've worked with since September. I don't see that as being the greatest kind of social emotional impact or the best kind of return for a student. And in all candor, to try and create a schedule where you would have 2 classrooms for each class would be very problematic. I mean, it's not impossible. We could probably get that done, but the spaces themselves, and again, how many groups would you want to put into the gym? Right. The gym students, that's one thing. We can get them outside if the weather is nice. The auditorium is another very large space, unlike the one you're in right now, but it's really not a very conducive space in terms of education. There's nothing for them to write on. Again, I think the kids would feel very isolated from their classmates and from their teacher.
And let's remember
we
that
just don't have enough of them.
and they'll be zoomed in. The teacher will be teaching from their classroom,
right?
and
Right.
15 of their students would be zoomed in from an auditorium.
So they wouldn't have a teacher in an auditorium anyway. They'd
Not
still be
in
zoomed in.
person.
It wouldn't be much
They
different.
can't fit in the room.
Right. No, and I raised
No,
that
I
because
understand.
a
I saw the
constituent
email
reached
as
out
well.
to us all
Yep.
with an email about it, so I
Yep.
wanted to make sure that her questions were heard and raised. Also,
And there's been, and again, this has been a feasibility study that was done since the last summer.
Right.
So there has been a plan in place.
Right.
There's been a 3-feet plan, a 6-feet plan, and we have to remember that we have to feed all these students at 6 feet apart.
right.
So, which there's just no way we can feed over 2,000 students at 6 feet apart, other than feeding them all day, and again, not changing the total schedule.
Right. We really need those spaces for lunch.
Lunch.
The oth-
Calf's a
The
need
other
for
thing
lunch.
is our teachers have been great. Our attendance has been fantastic. But, as soon as you start to have people not come to work because they're ill or they've got a personal day or what have you, it just compounds this situation exponentially, because now you have students in multiple locations without a teacher. We're trying to ensure that all of those students are aware that that particular teacher isn't there that day. And we just don't have that many large alternative spaces. On average, we have about 85 classes going a period, and I used 20, but the reality is probably more like 60 of those classes are going to have certainly more than 12 students, but probably more than 25 or 26. So the numbers are just really not manageable. Believe me, we've talked about trying to put stuff in the hallway, how we could utilize our cafeterias, the IRCs, the little theater, and we just run out of space, and then we run out of people to make sure that the students are monitored and are safe. And really, I don't think they would be getting the same type of attention and quality that they are getting now in the hybrid format. So.
Right. Okay. And I know we looked at feasibility plans back in the summer.
Oh,
No,
actually,
I know.
The only thing that I get that there's no plan, that's.
Right.
could
We've
be
had a
further.
plan for months. It just isn't
A year.
feasible. Right. And the other, and again, I'm asking because this was a question posed
No,
to me,
it's
so
perfectly fine.
I'm passing it on. Is once the seniors are gone, that doesn't free up enough space to allow this either. Is that not enough of a
No, it's
breather?
a possibility.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And
It's
again,
about
if the
it's about
state-
800 students. We'd still have an excess of 2,000, and again, really, with 1,100 students in the building, we have a lot of classrooms that are at capacity. And again, as soon as we go over that, we've got to figure out a place to have those students and then someone to supervise them.
Right. True.
It makes a difference. I mean, if the state says we have to try in June, then we'll have to try in June. But again, it's just
And I'm not
we
sure
can't-
how.
we can't envision that being done effectively.
And let's be clear, if the state comes back and says you're denied, then
We got to do it. We got to
on the
find a way to do it.
17th, we find a way to do it. I mean, and there's no other, we'll have to go outside. I
Yeah.
mean, again, the issue is going to be, even if they do it, it's going to be trying to find people to supervise the students, and students
Right.
are going to be not in person with their teacher, because they'll have to flip-flop. Half the class one day would be in with their teacher, the other half would be in the auditorium with a para, and they would be zoomed into their room.
Yeah, I don't think they would get what I think the people
No.
who are asking these questions assume they would get by coming in.
Correct. It's
No.
again, exactly. It's
Yeah.
not the back to
Right.
full normal
But
with
all
the
right.
3 feet. It's just no way.
Right. All right.
But again, at the end of the day, if they say no, we're going to have to figure something out.
All right.
Mr. Sullivan has a question.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. I just had a question, because when you look at the model here, the rows are actually 3 feet between the rows, but I thought the students' chairs just had to be 3 feet apart, so from chair to chair?
Yep.
But
Right.
then you have 3
So-
feet in the aisle, too.
The aisles
So
have to be
Right,
that for
right.
fire,
For fire.
for exits. So you see the 2 feet of aisle space on each side?
Yep,
So they are, the chairs are 3 feet apart, but you do need that aisle space for egress.
so the kids are actually more than 3 feet apart if you go chair to chair, right?
If you go next to each other.
Yeah.
If they're sitting side by side, they are 3 feet apart.
Okay,
But but when they're
but when
behind
there's a
the
row
desk in
there,
3 feet, like the person in front of me is more than 3 feet from me, but that's the
Right.
aisle for egress. But if they're side by side, it's exactly 3 feet.
okay,
But if I'm sitting here and there's a desk in front of me, that student, my classmate, is going to be more than 3 feet from me, because you have the desk, you have the 2 feet of the desk, then you have 3 feet of an aisle, which you need for egress, and then you would have. But the side-to-side students are 3 feet apart.
okay.
Am I making sense? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So,
Anybody-
do we,
oh,
do we
sorry.
know any, like, if any other high schools are having this problem, any
A
other?
lot of the big schools do. New Bedford, Fall River, Taunton. I mean, a lot of them have, those are the, none of them near our size. They're all, I think New Bedford's closest at about 2,800. Fall River probably has about 2,300 total. They're all still in a hybrid model. I have not heard what they're going to do with the March 17th mandate, whether they're looking for a waiver or looking to go they've been in for a while, places like other big systems like Worcester and Springfield. They just went back to school even in a hybrid model, I think this week.
Okay.
So our kids have been back, obviously, in the hybrid model, even at the high school level, and then we switched to 50% this past, I think it was, after the vacation, so.
So what would be the long range? Because, I mean, when this virus is not going anywhere.
The long range is that would be open back to business as normal in September.
Okay. So how
Hopefully with the community.
How can we do that? We still have the same high school.
No, but I think there'll be different guidelines. I think guidelines are changing. I think quarantine information, things are going to change. I think the cases will go down. And again, you can't use cases as a factor not to come back or come back full. But the mayor and I did get an email today from Dr. Herman, and the high school age kids they're the highest group of cases being spread. And the issues with some schools that are back at the high school level full-time is they have hundreds of kids quarantining each day. So the issue with coming back full-time also is that they're still using the quarantine rules. So if the quarantine rules change, and I don't see us not returning back in full person in September. I'd ask you to break down in tears if we can't return
I would
to
too.
regular education in September. I'm with you 100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because
Hopefully the level
we-
of vaccinations will be
We
up,
all
too.
know that kids
Absolutely.
do better being in school.
Oh, absolutely.
And we have all this money that we have to make sure the kids, our scores improve and everything. And if the kids aren't in school, it's just not ideal.
I have no doubt that we'll be back full-time in September.
Thank you.
There's no question the kids need to be back in front of their teachers in September, Okay, is anybody else, actually, this is do you need a vote on this?
Yeah, you have to approve me to put a waiver in.
Okay, all right, so,
I don't know if there's any other questions about,
any other questions about that or a motion? Either one, questions or motions?
I mean, Brockton High, the benefit of Brockton High is its size, as it's always
Right.
been. I was here when there was 5,200 students here. It's always been a benefit of being so big because we have so many programs, but in a pandemic, it's a con, not a pro.
Yeah. So, I mean, we basically need a motion to approve the superintendent putting in for the waiver to
To remain at 50%.
remain at 50% for Brockton High.
But remember, this is, the students with disabilities have been back full-time at the high school for quite some time now.
Okay.
So,
All right, Mayor Sullivan made a motion. Do we have a second? Seconded by, and that's a motion to approve, seconded by Ms. Asak. I'll call
Can I
the roll.
just ask one question?
Any discussion
Okay,
on the
so
motion?
the special
Mark?
needs kids have been back at the high school
yeah, they've
for
been full-time.
5 days?
5 days, yep. I think that was done, the dates, I'd have to look back at the dates. It was before the vacation. It was when, I want to say it was early March.
So they came back when the other ones, I know
Correct, yeah.
around
So
when it was.
Students with
Okay.
disabilities here at all across the district came back 5 full days.
So they're 5 days, okay.
I can get you the exact date. They all run together now, but
So it's just regular
it's
education?
the regular ed
Okay.
students, correct.
Thank you.
Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Minicello.
Do we have any information regarding the number of students and parents who still wish to remain via Zoom and outside of the high school?
Right now, it fluctuates between 1,000 and 1,500.
So 50% or more wish to remain for the remainder of the year
Yeah,
out.
because I
So your
think,
motion would basically cover everyone that wants to be present. A 50% plan would basically,
Not really, because every kid comes in for some amount. Well, no, I guess it would, because the ones that want to stay fully remote can.
yeah, we have to allow them to stay
Right.
fully
So and then the parents who want their students to come in as much as they can are getting that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
what's our high school number now? Is it Is it?
Total, it's 4,046.
4,000, okay.
4,046.
All right, so half would be about, let's just say 2,000, so it's about 55% want to attend school, and about 50%, about 45 want to be out?
There's right, Dr. Murray, is about, it fluctuates between 12 to 1,500 staying remote.
So that's less.
Yeah, I would actually say it's a little lower than that,
Okay.
to be honest with you. I think our last number was between 900 and 1,000. Looked like they were interested, but after the survey that Ms. Hodges did, I have a feeling that number would actually go up should we decide to go
Full.
with a full return. And I don't know. To me, I think that would have a kind of a negative impact on those kids that were in school for a couple days. You know, some weeks 3, some weeks 2, and to have them stop coming in at all, it doesn't seem like a step forward to us.
So we're required to comply with the guidelines, correct?
Right.
So if we are consistent with the guidelines and follow the guidelines, I mean, and obviously the space is what you represent it to be, then there isn't we cannot come back full, we cannot come back more than 50%, correct? In order to
Correct. That's
maintain
way
the
we
current
have
state
now.
guidelines.
We just can't fit that
Right,
many
so, all
students.
right, so basically, the 50% request by the superintendent complies with the current guidelines, and any increase would be in violation of those state guidelines and violate the health and safety.
The long and
Goals
short of
and
it is,
put
we
in
can't
place.
comply with the state guidance and come back full.
Or come back more than 50%.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right.
We
It's-
can't
it's
do more
actually-
than-
It's two, we can't comply with the state guidance to come back full-time, and we can't comply with the state compliance coming back at 3 feet.
Right,
So
we
it's
got
kinda-
DESI and the state kind of conflicting here, so, no, I mean, and let's be honest, I think we all agree, we want the kids back
Oh,
in
please.
person, in front of their teachers, that there's no replacement of that, but at this point,
And like, I don't even want to take it into consideration for September at all.
Right.
As
Oh,
far-
no. right, yeah. Mr. Minicello, are you all set? Any more discussion on the motion? Okay. So we'll do a roll call. Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
D'Agostino is a yes. Mr. Minicello?
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Ms. Asak?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
So moved. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. I'll keep you posted.
You're welcome.
All right, we're good with that part. Yep, so, so new graduation guidance, which is good news. New graduation guidance is allowing students to sit 3 feet apart, which was a little odd that the first guidance was they could sit inside at 3 feet apart, but outside in graduation, they had to be 6 feet apart. So that was the guidance that first came out about graduation, so now they've changed it to be able to be 3 feet apart. And also, we're able to have the traditional march out to the field, which is great. We are going with the 6 tickets. That's what we usually would go to in normal times. But because we're going to allowing for 6 tickets, we have to do obviously the 2 buildings each at 2 buildings at a time, which we'll stay and do that. But that does allow a full allotment of 6 tickets for each graduate, which obviously is very important for their parents, their grandparents, their family members to get 6 of them to attend. And that gives us plenty of room in the stadium that holds 15,000 to socially distance. So we have a plan in place. I met with Dr. Murray, Dr. Cobbs, Cindy Burns from the Keith Center, and Jay Lanner from the Huntington, then Ken Thompson, Jamie Domestico, school police. So our plan for graduation is all set to go. Everything that we usually have is ordered. We're able to have the chorus sing So we will be as close to normal of a graduation as possible. The only difference is we can have a tent, but we'll have to be a little bit more spread out on the stage. But we will have it set up like a regular high school graduations for all our high schools, which is great.
Excellent. So we'll have Edson, Keith, and Huntington on Friday
No, we'll
night?
have Friday, no, the Edison always, because we had graduation late last year in August, or the end of July, whenever that was, Edison always graduates the middle of July. So
Oh, right.
their graduation is July 15th.
Right.
So Friday night, which I believe is the 4th,
Yep.
June 4th, will be the Huntington and the Keith.
Okay.
That's at 5:30. And then on Saturday, it will be Brockton High School, 2 buildings at 11, and then 2 buildings at 2:30.
Great. All right.
That's it for that one.
All right.
Next up, we have Dr. Cancel is here. I believe Heather and Kate are with him. Heather Ronan and Kate Guerin, I believe they're here with him as well, to present and talk to you about trimesters. This is something that the assessment team has been working on. It's something for school committee consideration, not for tonight. It would have to go to policy, but we also have to do a little bit more work on this. If we consider trimesters K to 8, that's something that also has to be bargained. We have to bargain the impact of switching to trimesters. So I'm going to have them present that to you tonight, but after that, I would recommend it to a policy subcommittee meeting, but I want you to get an overview of what the difference between trimesters and 4 terms in a semester. Again, this is just K to 8 right now. So Dr. Cancel, are you with us? Ethan?
I am.
All right, get out of your way.
I'm very happy to be here tonight. I have 2 representatives of the Mighty Assessment Team. I just wanted Dr. Heather Ronan and Kate Guerin, and I just wanted to introduce what we are here to talk to you about tonight, and also just a little bit about the assessment team, because you may have heard it or us speak of it. It actually started under the last strategic plan that we had, and we would meet Friday afternoons, and we just liked doing that so much, we just kept doing it and kept doing it. One of the things that we worked on is we try to think about when things occur in the terms, and when grading windows should be, and when terms should start and end. And in doing that work, we came up with these ideas of how can we better meet the needs of students and families. And so I did want to say that the team is a very hardworking, very balanced team. We have representatives from special education, from the bilingual department, from the high school, from the elementary, from the alternatives. Kim Gibson sits on the team. We have all different sorts of folks, coaches who represent math, coaches who represent ELA, and I really wanted to thank all the members of the team for the great work they've done. As I said, we've been doing it for years, and I really wanted to give Heather and Kate the opportunity to speak on behalf of the team. You hear me and my bad jokes all the time, but now I wanted to give you an opportunity to hear from 2 of my esteemed colleagues. So, Heather and Kate, take it away.
Thanks, Ethan. Yes, and we are just representing a large number of hardworking people who love Friday afternoon meetings. So, a little background, the difference between a trimester and versus a semester, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but currently we have semesters here in K-8, where we have 4 terms, and a trimester would reduce that to 3 terms. Currently, there are 45 days per term, and we're proposing that we go to 60 days per term, but we would keep parent conferences as 2 times per year, which is what we currently have right now. The rationale for that, particularly in the elementary schools, but as middle schools as well. It allows for more time for data collection prior to the term ending, 45 days, which may seem like a long period of time when you're trying to go over routines and establish those routines with students and really get to know your students. It really isn't enough time to be able to have a clear evaluation of the students. This will allow teachers to have a clearer picture of their students, which they then can communicate to their families. It allows for parent conferences to be held earlier in the term as opposed to after the term is ended. So there's time for remediation and communication with those families prior to grades closing. It allows for more time to show growth, to enact response to interventions, so we can actually see that there might be some help needed from a student, and we can act on that early with the support of all of our experts in the building, and to progress monitor our students, which is really to kind of see, we're trying something out, we're looking to see if it's working, we try something else, we're looking to see if it's working, so we can communicate that well. It will also strengthen the communication with families by allowing a midpoint progress report prior to parent conferences, so that we can alert families, hey, you know, you might want to come in and talk about your child here, they're struggling with this, or hey, come in and talk about your child, they're doing great with this, and we really want to strengthen this. So this allows that more fluid communication earlier with parents.
So as part of the proposal for trimester, the assessment team really is proposing some changes in conferences. And like Heather had mentioned, we wanted the conferences to take place midterm, probably around 5 weeks prior to grades closing. And this would be a time for parents and families to really talk to teachers about how are students doing in the middle of the term. And like Heather had said, this provides time to create some safety nets for students, look at students socially, emotionally, and academically, time to remediate and intervene as community partners with the families to come up with a plan so students have the opportunity to make progress before the end of the term. So that's why conferences would really take place in the middle. And like we said at the beginning, we would still have 2 conferences in the year, but they would be at the middle of term 1 and then in the middle of term 2. We would have them in the first 2 terms. We felt that would be more productive for communication and to impact student growth and learning. So this is kind of additional information. It's the nitty gritty of what we do in assessment team in terms of when we get our calendar out, we get the calculator, some of us like an abacus, and we get to work on calculating all of the dates. So the first one is that the grading window will be open for 10 days for teachers, and this always includes a weekend. This is past practice of how we've done it every year in this team. The grading window will be open for an additional day. We like to provide schools with the time to print those missing grade reports to make sure that everything's comprehensive when it goes home. And for consistency within the district, it's nice that we all kind of have the same schedule so that report cards go into the backpack and Infinite Campus 2 days after the window closes for teachers. So parents all across the district are getting their parent conferences. We're following the same process for all students for consistency. This is new for the elementary level, brief progress reports to go home at the midpoint of each term. This already happens at the middle school level in 6 through 8, but this is something that we wanted to discuss. We're in the early stages of kind of developing what this could look like for our elementary friends. But something so that we could see our students midpoint, are they near the target of where they need to be, and just a point of communication for the parents and something to talk about for the during the attendance of conferences. And also trimesters will provide opportunities to improve the report cards moving forward.
And so this is just, what the proposed calendar would look like. And this is just, a draft. It's nothing that's final. But we really want to emphasize the impetus of this, with the pandemic, with the struggles that a lot of learners have had, and just with our history of, everyone on the assessment team is coming from schools or is currently in schools. And what's the frustration? Parents don't want to be surprised by an outcome. Teachers don't want to feel that the parents don't know and can't support. And so how do you increase the communication? Well, you increase the communication through these parent meetings and these progress reports. And it just was an attempt to be, to try to really improve the communication between teachers and families for the benefits of students. So that was really the impetus. And, we're happy to answer any of the questions you may have.
Okay, I saw Mr. Minicello first.
Good evening, Mr. Cancel, and everyone, the team, Heather and Kate. Well, it sounds like there were good intentions, so let me ask you, how did it go with regard to, obviously all the change and the current state of affairs with so much happening at one time with the pandemic?
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to catch all that. I'm going to plug in my headset and see if that works. Could you repeat that, please?
How did, I basically said that it sounds like the rollout had great intentions, but how did it work with regard to the changes happening at the same time, that there was so much going on and change in terms of teaching this year with the pandemic?
Well,
were the conditions ripe for this at this time, I guess?
Yes, in fact, we think this is because of the pandemic and the need that results from the COVID slide that we're seeing in, the STAR results and just what we're getting reported back from the schools. This provides the opportunity for the parents and teachers next year to really work on, very specific information, how they can support their kids and still have time to see the impact of these interventions. And Heather and Kate, if you have anything to add to that. We're trying. Mike said that we should try to be brief, and I'm not good at that. So
okay. Well, I'm glad your timing was good then, I guess, for the rollout.
Well, and as the superintendent said too, we'll vet this further.
So basically, this would have to be a policy change from the school committee, because there's currently 4 terms and 2 semesters. There are still the work that we have to do with the teachers, but it also has to be fully bargained. In bargaining right now that we've started training with IBB, so it has to go through the IBB process. And it has to obviously be a policy change. So this is the trimester proposal that's being presented, but obviously would be discussing this a lot more at policy sub, and it also has to be discussed in negotiations.
Right. So I'll make sure we get this on an agenda for policy in the not-too-distant future so we can have some more discussion and vet this further. If anyone else has anything, but I think that makes
Well, just as a follow-up to that, on my career on the school committee, I'll just bring back when Superintendent Nemberkow was the superintendent of schools, and Sue Ducasse rolled out the new report card criteria for middle schools, where they got rid of all of the grades. There was no A, B, C, F, D, and the justification was that, well, we're going to give you a grading system that really goes into detail in terms of what your student is focusing on and how well they're doing, and it's going to be so much better, and it's going to be this and it's going to be that, and everyone's going to love it because you're really going to focus on the areas that your child needs to focus on. Well, It all sounds really good academically and in edu speak, as I call it, but it was a disaster because parents looked at the report cards and were like, basically, well, I don't see an A, B, or whatever. I guess the kid's doing okay. I mean, there's a lot of information here, and great. And guess what? You still need that attention getter that people can digest. So you need the A or the B or whatever, but underneath the A or the B, now go into the real details so the parent has an idea. Yeah, okay, they are getting this concept. Give them some familiarity, but also then get into the nitty-gritty, to improve upon what you have. I mean, so I don't know exactly what your rollout is and what you're doing, and I'm sure it's great work, but just remember to, if you change the language too much and you don't give someone a familiarity of how your kid's doing and so that you can translate it, the parents just sort of like, oh, well, I guess they know better than I do, and and that wasn't too good a rollout, and I guess we all know how well the rollout of pod schools were. That was a big, great, improvement in education, having no walls up, right? And all those educators are so smart, right? The Raymond and the Davis, woo, now here we are years later putting walls up, because who would think that having 4 open classrooms in one area wouldn't be a good thing for kids, right? So, but whatever. But I digress. I'm sure you guys are doing a great job, but all I'm saying is just remember to keep things somewhat familiar so people can digest what you're doing.
Mr. Minicello, I swear that we didn't speak before, but I flipped back to the additional information where we have trimesters will provide the opportunity to improve the report cards. One of the things that the assessment team also talked about, and this is just very preliminary, but we have been working on doing just that. Parents need to have what we call, the grade sort of rolled up into something. So you have all these standards, but you look at 18 standards and you say, great, now how's my kid doing? Parents understand my kid's getting a B in English. They understand what that means. 18 different standards with 1s, 2s, and 3s, that doesn't tell them stuff. So it's perfect timing, and I swear we didn't talk before. But that will be part of the proposals, and Mike and Kim obviously will have to be big parts of that discussion. So that was perfect timing. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ethan. Thank you and your team.
Okay. Ms. Asak.
Thank you for the presentation. So is this something that the parents have asked for, to be able to have the opportunity to, if the child is struggling in a specific area, to be able to have, before we finish that term, before report cards are out, it gives the student, the family, and the teacher an opportunity to address that and be able to work on, some progress.
This trimesters would. That's one of the proposals for the change.
To me, it's a positive.
Gives you more time to...
Allowing, it's a little more work involved, I believe, for the teachers to be able to just, identify with the parents to see where, if there is a struggle of some sorts. But I'd be curious to see what the parents, I'm sure this is something I'm always hearing. Parents are like, oh, I wish we knew before report cards came out. This gives them the opportunity to see if there is an area that the child is struggling or needs a little extra attention, to be able to allow them to work in that specific area before the report cards are out. Catch it early on.
Yeah, I mean, they do get warnings halfway through the term. The issue is the first term is really quick. The school year starts, and all of a sudden, halfway through the school year is,
then you hit the
early.
holidays.
Halfway through the term is early October, so it ends up coming on people really quick. But they do get warnings now. But in this trimester model, it gives more time for teachers to work with the parents to help, and the students to help get grades improved before the closing of the semester.
Has anyone else, any other district use this, or are we the
Several
first?
use trimesters, but Ethan can get you, when we come to policy sub, we can get you other lists of school districts that use trimesters. And again, this is for K-8. This is not for high school. Because high school, we have to maintain right now 4 terms, 2 semesters. It's tied to GPAs. It's tied to college admissions. So this is a K to 8 proposal right now.
When we bring this to policy, maybe we could see if we have any teachers in the district who have done this somewhere and get some input and feedback from them as well. I think I'd be interested in that, and,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
And I also promised that we didn't, Mark and I didn't speak about this either, but, we had the Ashfield School, we had the Plouffe Academy who had trimesters and they loved it. And we have people, because we're the assessment team, we do research and we don't only look at public schools or urban public schools. We look at high-end private schools and we see what they do. And we look across the country, what are the best opportunities for parents and students and teachers so that you can support, the achievement. And that's why we came up with the trimester proposal. So we'd be happy to tell you, about the different schools that use this that we found in our research on it.
great.
And we also will have feedback from our teachers as well.
Excellent. Any, Ms.
Yep,
Asak,
just-
wanted to go around too?
Yep, just quick question, Ethan, how long have they been using the trimester over at the Ashfield and the Plouffe?
How long were they using it? Because it stopped now, but
It stopped years
they
ago.
liked it very much. And they did it as a result of, staffing. They couldn't make their schedules as we were cutting so much, but they really liked it. And in talking with Barbara Lovell, about scheduling, it's funny, we brought it to the assessment team and everyone sort of coming at it from their own angle kept reaching the same conclusion. So we can bring people like Barbara in to talk about it, what the experience was like. But there's some big advocates in our system, and I can tell you, not that it matters, but way back when I went to school in New Jersey, we had trimesters, and they were, I thought, very effective.
That would be nice if we could invite Dr. Lovell. So having the trimesters, was there a significant change as far as the students, as far as their progress? Did the principals notice a huge change?
I think Barbara will be able to speak to that. I think that what, Heather can talk about when she was an assistant principal or, when Kate was in schools. It's the frustration that parents say, I didn't know, or by the time you find out about it, it's actually a grade that's come out, as opposed to a progress report, which isn't a grade. It's just an indication of the progress you're making so you can do something so that when there's actually a grade, your first trimester grade, then you've had the chance for the interventions to work, as opposed to, well, now it's second term. You already have a whole term in the books, in the grade book. So
Right.
Thank you.
All right. We will be sure to get this into policy and have a much longer conversation about it.
Just cueing my next
I
agenda.
assume Mr. Petronio is the next guest speaker?
Microphone. Do you have your,
Subtle hint.
sorry to interrupt.
We gotta be here at 8 o'clock at night. We gotta have a little fun.
So next, I know we did this at the the Finance Subcommittee meeting, but I want Aldo to give you an update on our FY '22 budget, comparing last year to this year. Aldo, just the top summary sheet to go over the non-net school spending, FY '21 compared to proposal for FY '22 for net school spending, and then do the same, please, for non-net school spending.
Sure. Good evening. For FY '21, we received an amount for net school spending of $176,303,341 from the city. We supplemented that with about 4.1 million of ESSER 1 money that came in. That was to be used for any purpose we intended we needed, and since last year was a short year, that helped make up our shortfall. So we had a total of about 180.4 million. This year, I'm estimating, with the House's number that just came out, it was about $1.5 million more than the governor's number. I'm estimating our figures to be around 200 million. We'll need to supplement that with about 5 million from ESSER 2 money, and possibly some leftover ESSER 1 from this year. And there's a few grants coming through for about another $327,000, give us a budget of about 205.3 million. The reason for the large increase is, of course, the Student Opportunity Act brought in additionally about another 18 million on top of our usual 3 to 4 million that we receive for the city, that we receive for the school district from the state. So that's what brought us up around that figure. We don't have an actual set dollar amount yet because the city hasn't set their budget, and the CFO of the city is working on the health insurance costs. That's a large factor in our budget, sometimes more than $1 million. So once he's finalized that piece, we'll be able to finalize our portion of the budget, which we're doing hopefully sometime in the next week. So we took all of our expenses from FY21, and we increased those expenses by our known increases in contracts. In the past 6 weeks or so, we've had school committee finance meetings, and we've gone through all the additions we want to make to the budget that the superintendent has brought forward, presented tonight to the school committee, additional positions for teaching, for learning, for student opportunities, for programs, summer programs. And adding those all in with those additional personnel, we balance out at 205 million for the budget. That includes everything to date. So hopefully the money makes it through from the House to the Senate budget, makes it through the Compromise Committee, at least the same, if not better. I have a feeling that it might be a little better, that I've heard that they've been working diligently on trying to send more money to education. So that would tie out our budget at 205.3 million for the year. It's our largest budget ever. It's the first time in almost 10 years that we're actually adding to our budget. Every year until now, we've had to either have layoffs or reductions in our budgets. This is a great year for the school committee to be able to put back all those programs that have been lost to students over the past almost 10 years. If you remember, on the non-net side, that's our school buses, our crossing guards, our community school office, our family outreach, all of those items that aren't considered academic. We had last year from the city about 11.5 million. We had additional revenues from items like circuit breaker and other categories of another 3.5 million, so we had about a $15 million budget. For FY22, we've been able to purchase almost half of our bus fleet with funds that we had from this year. So that allowed us to require less from the city. So it's about $1 million savings to the city at 10.5 million. We have, again, our revenues from other sources like circuit breaker of 2.4 million. And if you notice on our expenses, FY21 had personnel expenses or personal expenses of 994,000. Those were the few positions we had in, between crossing guards and community schools. Since we will be hiring our own drivers for at least half the buses, that number has increased. So our personnel expenses have gone up to 4.8 million. That's, again, all those offices plus all the additional personnel to drive the vehicles and fix and repair them. And at the same time, our transportation costs, which we usually put out to vendors, will drop from 14.1 million down to about 8 million. So the savings in the first year, even though we only bought half the buses, is realized right there. So we're at about 12.9 million. And again, because these figures are estimates, spoken with the CFO of the city, we had a huge shift in student enrollment this year. We've lost almost 1,000 students. So he and I have discussed, for now, we'll hold off on whether or not we need more buses, and he'll try and plan in his budget a way to fund us additionally if many of those students come back in September and we need additional funds to basically to put more buses on the streets. We'll come up with an amount of money that we can put aside for that. But for now, we're looking very good. This is the first time in many years we've, at this point especially, beginning of May, coming in saying we pretty much have everything we've discussed that we need in our budget, and we have the funding for it. So going forward, I think this will be a great budget.
All right. Well, first, I think, and we've mentioned this before, but again, it's worth saying over and over and over that getting to this point, was certainly a team effort of the current and prior superintendent and the city council and the mayor was on the council at the time and supported us, and our state delegation who fought the fight on Beacon Hill for us, Mr. Petronio, who drove all over the state. I don't. Is there a corner of Massachusetts you haven't been to at this point?
I haven't seen Florida, Massachusetts. But
I can tell you where it is. I have.
Okay, but I mean, basically, you went everywhere, and let's not forget to mention the other urbans that joined us in this fight. Because it wasn't just us going alone. Mr. Petronio went on the road with Superintendent Smith, and impressed that upon them the need to join us, and they many of them did, and this committee and past members of the committee, jumping in and being in support and working together, and parents and teachers, and I mean this it was a huge undertaking, as was pointed out earlier by my colleague Mr. Minicello. I mean, this was, talk about a team effort. It was all hands on deck, and but we got it done, and now we're able to, provide a lot of benefit to our students. It's very well timed because obviously we have a lot of work to do to help our students, recover from, as we've called it, the COVID slide, and to get back on track. And we'll need resources to do that. But we obviously, it's not just throw money at it. We have to produce results, and I'm confident we'll do that. With that, anybody else want to? Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to thank Aldo and Troy Clarkson and Mike. I mean, we have weekly meetings or weekly Zooms about this, much like we did last year. Last year, it was gloom and doom, right? We were talking about catastrophic layoffs, and we were able to minimize that. Unfortunately, we did lose some, and any job loss is great. But the only thing I just have to caution everybody is these numbers, again, are projections. The House has come back, right? They're great estimates for Brockton, but they could be high. So the process of Beacon Hill is the Senate side, and then ultimately Governor Baker. But they should be pretty close to what Aldo just represented. But I just want to make sure people realize those are not the hard numbers in any way.
Okay. Yeah, it might be a little premature for the victory lap, I suppose. Yes, hopefully. Mr. Minicello.
And this equity in education funding resulted from Brockton. Brockton is where, in the past, when our students weren't receiving the education they deserved years ago, Brockton stood up and fought the fight and won the battle. And we saw what the state was doing to us with the combination of taking away funding for low-income students, taking away funding with regard to charter schools, not funding us, telling us on one year the formula is this, and then the next year the formula is that. It was like basically a shell game. And every year we were always coming out the loser. And so with the help of our city council, Mayor Sullivan, Mayor Carpenter, Mayor Rodriguez, when the mayors Sullivan and Rodriguez were councilors, they supported us in giving us the funding that we needed in order to hire the experts. We didn't do it on our own. We had top-notch education, Boston, Worcester attorneys that specialized in this battle, and the state knew that we weren't messing around. It wasn't like we had some person that didn't know what they were doing. These are people at the top of their field, and when they were coming into a courtroom with complaints that were drafted, and they presented them prior to actually filing, the state woke up, and other communities saw what we were doing and joined. Mayor Sullivan certainly has a good rapport with other mayors, and together he, and in the past Mayor Carpenter, brought all these communities together, and again, the show was on the road. Deputy Superintendent Thomas, had his connections. Aldo Petronio did an incredible job up on Beacon Hill and impressed all these senators and the representatives with his knowledge and basically exposing them for what they were doing to Brockton every year and showing how, one year we were down $16 million. And then the state had the nerve to say to us, oh, you didn't invest in this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, because we were trying to make the boat float, for God's sakes, because you were sinking us at every turn. You were throwing a hole in our bow every minute of every year. Boom, boom, boom. So now, like the mayor says, cautions us on a $15 million beautiful little picture there, but one year they hit us for $16 million. So imagine if we had that funding back then, and each year we were getting what we needed to do. Brockton would be, leaps and bounds, but it's a miracle, and through the efforts of the employees of this school system, that our students compete with every other community out there. And as we know, our students go to the top-notch colleges, as they are this year. All the greatest colleges in this country they're going to because of what they get in Brockton and the efforts that people put in here. So it is a team effort, but it was a team effort of a lot of really committed people. And this city never giving up, because we always see Brockton and education in Brockton as the stepping stone for a good future for our youth. And that's always been our vision. All of us on the school committee always hated it when we had to take away a program, an after-school program that would keep kids involved in positive things, because we know where that can go if they're not with good instructors, with good programs and healthy programs, and kids get into mischief. It's natural. It happens in any community. It doesn't matter if it's Brockton or if it's Easton. If they're out doing things and there's nothing for them to do, boredom doesn't work too well with youngsters, as we know. So it always pained us literally to get rid of those middle school sports programs, all that, programs, stripping it out even from the elementary schools, after school programs. So thank God we have this funding, but we've got to spend it wisely and make sure that education and getting these scores up is number one. But this is good news, much better than we've had in the past. So thank everyone. I thank everyone for their efforts. It was a team effort from everyone.
Anyone else?
Thank you. So we good? Any other questions for Aldo? All right, Aldo, thank you. And that's it for the report of the superintendent of schools. Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Superintendent Thomas. Okay, well, we do have items to refer to subcommittee. Now, my understanding is one of these items, the date has changed. We had the public hearing on the school budget originally in here for May 11th. That's actually going to be on the 18th. And then the public hearing on school choice, is that still also on the 18th? We're doing them both on the 18th?
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Okay. Very good. And then we'll have a policy subcommittee to further examine the issue of trimesters from K to 8. Any other items to refer to subcommittee? All right. God, let me try that for the third time. Under unfinished business, I know we have a few items here. My understanding is, Mr. Minicello, you had a motion for the first item?
Financial stuff. Okay.
We have to do this part first, right?
I don't know what what's the focus part?
What? Am I missing something?
I think Joyce has to read this part first.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Oh, I hand wrote this. What do you have?
We gotta do this part.
Right.
Yep. Okay. I do have something under unfinished. So earlier this evening, in our facilities usage and planning subcommittee, we discussed to resubmit the 2021 MSBA SOI application, which is due by June 25th. So I believe we need a motion to approve in the full meeting And right here, we have the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, has opened the window for filing 2021 SOIs for their accelerated repair and core renovation programs. We are seeking permission from the school committee to file an application with the MSBA core program for Brockton High School, located at 470 Forest Ave, on or before June 25th, 2021. So if we can get a motion to approve in the full committee.
Do we need a motion to accept the recommendation of the Facilities Subcommittee?
Motion to accept.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to accept from Mr. Minicello, properly seconded by Mr. Sullivan. I'll call the roll. Give me 1 second. All right. Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
D'Agostino is a yes. Ms. Azak.
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Minicello.
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
So moved. Now, I believe Mr. Minicello has the next item.
So now that school committee woman Azak has made the report and we've accepted it, now we ratify the motion per that report. So the motion would be to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated on or before June 25th, 2021 for Brockton High School at 470 Forest Avenue, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Brockton High School full renovation, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the city, town, regional school district, or one of the above to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Now, the mayor would have done this by memory, but I needed a cheat sheet, so. So that's my motion. I'm looking for a second.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Minicello.
Second.
All right, seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. Any discussion on the motion?
Well, I'll just say this has been a long time coming. We all know, that this building needs a facelift. It needs more than a facelift. It needs really an addition. It needs a full renovation, and our community, deserves it. As we all know, around us, we've seen, the schools that are being built in other communities for high schools, and this school was a state-of-the-art building. I mean, this was the shining star, and it still is, size-wise, one of the largest high schools in the country. It still might be, as we all knew, growing up, the largest high school this side of the Mississippi. That's what we were always told. We'll take their word for it, and I'm told it still is. But it's time for updating. It's time to give our kids, the technology and the facelift, and really, even the basics. Sealing the holes, plugging the holes, doing what needs to be done. And our community deserves, just like the other ones around us. We all know who are building new high schools and who have built new high schools. So it's as they say, it's our turn. So
Over the weekend, I drove by the beautiful brand-new Stoughton High School. And yeah, of course, I absolutely thought, great, where's Brockton's?
don't begrudge them, but
Right,
it's our
right.
turn,
Congrats
too.
to them. I don't begrudge them having that.
not?
From the looks of it, it's a wonderful facility. But as you said, it's our time as well to be able to have a facility like that for our students. I'll say, and I don't want to go on too much with this, but we obviously know that our application from last year was declined, and we were obviously extremely disappointed by that. However, again, 0% of first-time applications get through, and we know that. For context, I mean, just the roof on the Huntington, that's been 4 or 5 years in the making. So sometimes it gets frustrating that these things take time, but, this is a substantially larger project than a roof. So, it will get done. We will keep pushing forward. I don't know, I'm not saying we won't get through this time, or we will, but we'll certainly keep pushing forward because our kids deserve it, our city deserves it, and there's no reason why. I mean, it's pretty obvious that you know, it's long past due. So any other discussion on the motion? Mrs. Sullivan?
I just have a comment. All the other towns around us have new high schools. And we, we're still waiting, so.
Right. Any other members on the motion? Okay.
This facility is one of the most used buildings in the city of Brockton. All throughout the year, on weekends, nights, by all sorts of organizations, not just the Brockton Public Schools students, but, there's tons of organizations that utilize this building. This is really a community center for the city of Brockton, so that's why it's so important to this city.
Of course. Mayor Sullivan?
Yeah, I just want to thank Tom for that motion, and just again, remember, other municipalities took 8 years to get it approved, right? And I want to thank Leader Claire Cronin, House Majority Leader, who created the ability for us to have a nice conversation with MSBA. Vice Chair and Superintendent and myself participated with the other delegation members, and they understand. They totally understand the need for this, and so I'm really I'm hopeful, and this is just another step in the process. But thank you for filing that, Tom, for motion.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention, they were quite clear. There was nothing wrong with our application. It's just, there were, like you said, others that were 8 years in the making, that were just ahead of us at the time, so. All right, any other discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none. We have a motion by Mr. Minicello, seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. I'll call the roll. Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
D'Agostino is a yes. Ms. Asak?
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Minicello?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
So moved.
So if I could just respectfully ask Mr. Mayor, if you can have the Ward 2 Councilor file.
Ward 3, Dennis and Erie?
Yes.
Okay.
If he could file for this now to go before the City Council. We would need an approved vote now. We need 2 approved votes to send in with the application by June 25th.
Okay.
So the next step is the City Council.
Okay.
And Aldo and Troy, I know that they worked with Dennis last time.
Yep.
To make sure the exact language is put forward for the order.
Yep.
So Aldo, if you can work with Troy, he did that last time for Councilor Ian Erie, so if
I'll
we
call
can
him
get
in the
that
morning.
moving,
Yep.
that would be
We'll get
great.
it squared away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Also under unfinished business, we have an approval of bid review subcommittee meeting.
Yes, thank you. Earlier today, Tuesday, May 4th, 2021, bid review subcommittee met, started at 4:03 p.m. Quorum call was made by Chair Tim Sullivan. Members Mark D'Agostino and Member Judy Sullivan were all present. We had a quorum. Also present was Mike Vandus from Central. Governor Baker's COVID-19 temporary order was read. This meeting was broadcast on Zoom over the Brockton channels. There was only one item in front of us. The one item that was put out for bid. 3 companies had requested information, but only one had bid. A motion was made by Judy Sullivan, seconded by Mark D'Agostino, to accept the low bid and the only bid of $4,764,841.80 for 71 passenger buses and $2,417,114.40 for 16 and 24-foot passenger buses. The vote was unanimous. A roll call was taken. The meeting was adjourned at 4:14 p.m. Part of the motion was that it would be brought favorably to the full school committee tonight for its approval. At this time, I would like to make a motion to accept the bid review minutes as read.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Mr. Sullivan to accept the bid review, the recommendation of the bid review subcommittee, seconded by Mr. Minicello. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
D'Agostino is a yes. Ms. Asak?
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Minicello?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
So moved. All right. Is that all on that,
If I'm finished?
on the unfinished? Is that the right, we didn't need to do anything further on that except accept that?
Yep,
Okay.
all set.
All right,
Do we
very
have to
good.
ratify that bid or not? Does the whole, we approved the minutes.
Right, that's why I was
So you
asking.
have to now make a motion to
We
approve.
need to
I think
make a
just to
motion to
ratify
accept,
the bid.
to ratify the bid.
I'll make a motion that we ratify the bid from the bid review committee.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Sullivan,
Second,
seconded by Mr. Minicello. We'll call the roll again. Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
D'Agostino is a yes. Ms. Asak,
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez,
Yes.
Mr. Minicello,
yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. All right, do we have any other unfinished business? I think that's it. Wonderful. Under new business, we have early education, extended day rate increase, and the committee does need to take action on this. So those that have been on the committee for a little while are familiar with this item. It's comes up periodically that we have to look at this rate to keep up with rates that the people that work in these programs can earn in other places. I don't know if you wanted to comment, Superintendent?
Yeah, we have Melissa Shepherd here, just to quickly, the coordinator of the extended day program, so she can explain the rate increase proposal and what comes out from the ESE. So Melissa, I think you're with us, right, Melinda?
Yes, I am.
Thank you for being here,
No problem.
or
Thank
being
you.
there and here at the same time.
Good evening. So I'm going to shut my camera off because that is a very large screen.
Everybody
But does it? I'm happy to explain the rate increase. As mentioned, it is a periodic rate increase that I get notification from the Department of Early Education and Care. And in order to remain in good standing with our contract that we have with the Department of Early Education and Care, it is requested that we keep pace with these reimbursement rates for our subsidized slots. We have two contracts with the Department of Early Education and Care. We have a teen contract that supports our teen parents at Brockton High, and we also have an income eligible contract with the Department of Early Education and Care, and that supports our families who attend extended day and who meet income guidelines to qualify for subsidized childcare. So on this, I believe you received the letter I wrote to Superintendent Thomas, and it just outlines, it's a 2% increase, and it outlines, what the rate is right now, what the rate would be, and what the difference is per day and per week. So I had proposed, there is a pricing limitations law because of the pandemic. So we have to implement the rate change right away, which is disruptive to families. But we have some flexibility this year because there was a pricing waiver because of the pandemic. So I had proposed that we possibly start the new rate when the summer program begins, because it's like a new program for the families, and then we implement the school day rates in September.
Yep.
So that's a summary. I don't know if any members have any questions.
Well, thank you for being with us tonight. And, as it turns out, you literally can these days be in two places at the same time. Any questions or comments from members of the committee?
How many families does this affect in terms of the rate change? Approximately.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question.
Approximately how many families does this rate change affect that pay out of pocket, I guess, as opposed compared to people that have a voucher of some sort?
Right. So right now we started on March 9th. The extended day program opened on March 9th. And right now we have registered about 400 private pay families and approximately 250 families who are on a subsidy. So right now we have more private pay families than we do families on subsidies.
But in a typical year, it's reversed. In a typical year, we have more families on a child care subsidy and less families that pay privately. I think that the pandemic has played a big part in that. We've done a lot of work in the extended day program. I have 3 voucher managers that work alongside me to renew these child care vouchers, and we work with an outside agency as well. And it's been a very slow and steady but tedious process to get vouchers renewed because a lot of families weren't using childcare during the pandemic. So I think that our subsidized slots will return to normal as we continue to open and return to normal in so many ways.
Do you
So that's
feel,
where it stands right now. But
do you feel
typically
that
we
this-
have more voucher families than families on a subsidy than we do private pay families.
do you feel that this 2% increase is going to impact negatively the number of families that are currently using this service? Oh, did you not hear that
I'm sorry.
question?
Was that a question? I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing the exact
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
question.
I think you could hear me better if we had your face on the big screen. Somehow it works much better, Melissa.
Think so?
I think so. Yeah. Oh, there you are. Yes. Hi. How are you?
It's a party at school committee.
Do you think that this 2% increase is going to dissuade some of the 400 families from utilizing? I guess if you said to me, "Geez, Tom, we're gonna lose 100 families if we increase this thing," I would sit and pause and think about this. What do you think the impact's going to be? A 2% increase on those 400 out-of-pocket pay families.
I know, and I certainly respect the question and respect the predicament that we're always in with this. I guess what I would say is that many of the area daycares that are in Brockton, such as the Y or Westfield Childcare you may be familiar with, or Agape Childcare, which is on Oak Street, they all accept childcare vouchers. So they're all accepting this rate increase. So we are in lockstep with our tuition and all the area providers. And, daycare, as I've mentioned before, is very expensive. In Massachusetts, in fact, I was just at a meeting this week where we're the second most expensive state in the country for daycare.
And that's my concern about
when you look at these numbers,
hurting families.
It's real. It's expensive. So I guess I would just say that, families who need before and after school care, we're at the rate of other providers. So I don't feel that we're, out of competition, so to speak. So if families need before and after school care, they either can qualify for a subsidized slot or unfortunately they have to pay the private tuition.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is about staying in compliance with our contract. So we're in a little bit of a rock and a hard place, I guess I would say.
So if we didn't increase it, what would be the negative outcome? I guess then, on the district.
Well, I think I would eventually run into a problem with the department in our contract, and that gets renewed every July.
Aldo, don't they look for us to make up the money? And where would you get that money? Okay. Yeah, because you can't subsidize with
Right.
Chapter 70. Okay.
Right.
So I remember this happening a couple of years ago.
Right. That's the tough part of this issue is it's
Right.
kind of a carrot and stick kind of problem.
My only concern this year is COVID. Okay, I know. I've been on this committee for several years, and we've always increased it every year because I'm just a little hesitant this year because of, some of these families might just be getting back to work, and it's like every penny counts. I don't know. You know what I mean? That I try to put myself in their shoes. I just don't know. So this is the one. This year I just have a funny feeling about this one. I don't know. I'm just not.
But that's why we're holding off, right, Melissa?
Well, again, we can hold off until September for the school year rate, certainly, because we do have through June 30th, where there's this pricing exemption in the contract. That expires July 1st. So maybe Aldo could provide some guidance what would happen if we didn't increase the rates for the summer program. That is going to start on June 21st, the summer program for the extended day program.
Aldo, what would happen with the summer if we put everything off till September?
I think we may find ourselves having to make up the difference.
What would
if we
that
put it
number
off.
be, Aldo?
I don't know. I haven't done the math on this yet.
can
Melissa, would you have, we can.
Can
would
we
you-
punt till the next meeting, I guess, on this issue?
So it's a $3.95 increase, $3.95 for the week increase. For the summer, it's 79 cents per day. For the full day rate, which is when we have the kids in care all day, for that would be for the summer program. So I guess that would be 79 cents for every subsidized child times the 9 weeks that we're open for the summer, that they attend out of that time.
Aldo, do the math.
That adds up.
How many students is that?
400.
I would say it's
400
hard to predict
families,
right now, but on an average year, I would say 250.
Okay, Aldo, 250 in times,
But
Melissa.
this year it's 400, right? Isn't that what we just heard? This year it's 400 paid families.
Well, that's how many kids are enrolled right now.
That's right, but that's not the number that stays for the
Right.
summer.
I'm gonna open registration this week, and so everybody has a choice whether they come in the summer or not. It's not just because they're in the school year program doesn't mean they have to attend in the summer. That would be a choice.
So she's going off the summer numbers.
I want you to know, Melissa, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just concerned about the finances because of the economy right now with COVID.
Sure.
You know?
No, I appreciate that. I understand that.
It's roughly $1,000 a week, 8 weeks of summer, because I know we don't start until, right after July 4th. So it would be $8,000 for 250 students for the summer.
Okay. So, and can I just clarify something? You're talking, this $40.52 rate here, is that per week?
So that's per day.
Per day? Okay, I just wanted to clarify because I wanted to, oh, okay, and 39.73 was before. All right, sorry, I looked at it wrong and.
Sure, no problem.
And even still, I mean, I just did some quick math of what we were paying for daycare. Again, we stopped paying for daycare last year, but it wasn't that long ago, and I know what we were paying and did some quick math. This is still, even at this increase, a lot less money than a private paid daycare.
But I think that's why some of our families are here, because it is a better value and they don't have the money to go to a more expensive place.
Right. It's still a much better value. I mean, again, it's only $8,000, and I'm not saying that it wouldn't be. Yeah, Mayor Sullivan.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Melissa for that information. Listen, in light of the devastation of COVID and the impacts it's had in Brockton, I'm talking $8 or $9 grand.
Yeah.
So the superintendent and I just talked. We're going to take it from non-net. That's the right thing to do right now. Brockton's been hurt so much, people financially hurt and emotionally, physically. So for $9 grand, when you talk about a $500 million budget, yeah, we'll do the right thing. We'll take care of it.
Okay. So then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So that would put increases off until September 1st.
Right. Okay. So then.
So there'd be no increases for the current program to finish the year out, which we weren't proposing anyway. So those current rates would stay in place until the last day of school, June 16th. And then obviously we would keep the current rates throughout the whole summer. Mm-hmm. And then we would put these rate increases off until September 1st.
Right. So would we basically have a motion to make this effective September 21, approve the rate increase for September, for all programs, September of 2021?
At least this will give families some time to digest, what's coming,
Right, and it's
and this is the beauty of having the chief executive officer of the city here who can make a decision like that right away, whereas the school committee does not have that financial authority. So thank you once again, Mayor Sullivan.
Yeah, because you're right, it's non-net. Right.
Right. So we would have to
Yep.
get that. So we appreciate the mayor getting us the funds to be able to do that. All right. So do we want to go forward with the September 21 adoption of the new rates? No? Somebody want to do that?
You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I just on the motion, it wasn't seconded, but would we need to do that at this time?
No, we could hold off.
The only reason I'm saying is there's an expectation to get a lot of federal money, and if it comes, maybe it changes the story right now, but we're not going to know that until the new fiscal year. So I think if we could just pause and take this vote a little bit later after July 1, it might give us a little more guidance to see if we can give additional breaks to the families here in Brockton. No promises, but I think it would be the right thing to do.
Yeah, we'll have Melissa back. We'll put her on the agenda for the July meeting, and have Melissa come back and join us.
Great. Yeah, you're right, because if we get, some ESSER funds or some federal funds that we can delay this even
Yep.
further, that'd be wonderful. So,
Although, all that federal money coming in on the school side, remember that money, right?
Good answer, Aldo. Good answer.
Oh, God.
all right.
Welcome
okay.
to the school committee, Mr. Mayor.
All right. So then, do we have an executive session this evening?
No, we just have one more thing under new business.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any other items for new business?
I just wanted to announce, as you can see out in the front steps of the Fine Arts, the Brockton High School Drama Club is going to present On With the Show. And that's next Thursday, May 13th, 8 p.m., Friday, May 14th, 8 p.m., and Saturday, May 15th at 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. And any rain date for any cancellations on one of those days would be Sunday, the 16th, with the time to be announced. So I want to thank the school committee. You have fully funded the drama club, so students didn't have to go out and raise money this year. You fully funded the building of all the set that you see out there, the sound system that has to be rented for outdoors, and the drama club. They're thrilled. They have been working so hard. Mr. Hogan, Carol Thomas is back, Sarah Richards, and all the staff that works with the kids in the drama club to put this production on. Obviously, it's our spring musical, and although we can't have it inside, they have done a lot of work to get that set up outside, and they're ready to go next Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and I hope a lot of people choose to attend. We have a seating capacity, well, it's outdoor seating of 300. It's spread out in the parking lot, so obviously we're following the guidelines, but by all accounts, it's going to be a great show, as it always is. But I want to thank the school committee this year because we have fully funded this year's drama musical, and students could concentrate with the staff on getting ready and rehearsing and not going out raising money. So we want to thank you for doing that.
Hey,
Because an outdoor production is not cheap.
right. But it was the right thing. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's not the
100%.
ideal way. We have, normally we would do things, but the kids certainly deserve the opportunity to perform. And, I'm looking forward to coming and seeing the performance. And I hope that a lot of people will show up and show their support for these kids that are, working hard to put on a great performance outside and in a safe way for us and for them. And so it'd be great if we could, as a community, rally and to the degree that we can pack the parking lot, let's do that. So, all right. Okay. Any other new business? Okay. Do we have executive session? No. We do not have executive session. Well, then I think we know what time it is.
D'Agostino, I want to just thank you for pinch hitting. I had a conflict. I was at another meeting at City Hall, so I want to thank you for stepping up to run the meeting tonight. Thank you.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Asak. I don't think we need any discussion on this motion. I'll just call the roll. Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
D'Agostino is a yes. Ms. Asak.
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez. Mr. Minicello.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you for your time.